Everyone. We're just going to give everyone just some time to just kind of take a virtual seat and settle in. As you're popping onto this, it'd be great if everyone can just go into the chat and say hello, say hi, and let us know where you're coming in from. We'll just give everyone one more minute to arrive. Yeah, Vancouver. It's nice to see some West Coast friends coming
Yeah.
in. Yeah, this is great.
Hi, everyone.
All right. Well, we're going to kick things off because we have a lot to cover. Hello again. I'm MJ Decoto, and I'm the founder and executive director of Rethink Breast Cancer. So excited to be here with you all this evening for another Rethink Real Talk. And it's great. I know some of you have been to these before. It's great to see you back. And we're also super excited for and want to welcome anyone who's joining us for the first time. We thought before we sort of dive in, we wanted to just take a few moments to ground ourselves and acknowledge the land that we are all gathering on tonight. I'm here in Toronto, so on behalf of the Rethink team, we are grateful and honored to live and work on the traditional territory of several First Nations, such as the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, which are home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. We honor and acknowledge the land. We acknowledge their history with deep respect, and we stand in solidarity and allyship with the Indigenous peoples of these lands and beyond in their fight for land, self-determination, and decolonization. As for tonight's topic, we know how important it is to all of you here tonight. Finance is something that, we just don't really talk about in general, let alone really discuss the unexpected burden that comes when you're navigating a breast cancer diagnosis. It can just add extra financial stress that you didn't really know you needed to prepare for. And so we know a lot of people in our community walk this alone and with very little guidance. So we want to really change that and normalize just talking openly about this very real issue. We've got some finance experts here tonight, running the spectrum from debt management to financial planning and investments, as well as two of our fabulous patient advocates that are here to share their personal experiences. And, the goal is to really leave us with some helpful solutions to empower you in taking back control and lessening the overwhelm. I'll let Trish take us through some housekeeping things, and then we'll get started. Muted.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here tonight. We're happy to be having this conversation. Like MJ said, we know this topic is very important to you. We want to, as always, keep this a safe space for everyone's experience. Just be mindful that this is open to anyone with breast cancer at any stage, and just be mindful of the different, or all the different experiences in the room. We will be starting off tonight with a panel discussion with our four panelists, and then we'll conclude with a Q&A. So if you could please hold your questions for the Q&A. There's a function at the bottom of your Zoom screen that you can post your questions in, and then you can also upvote those questions if you see a question that is something you wanted to ask that somebody already asked. So, and then we'll try to get to as many of those as we can tonight. So you can use the chat to, of course, connect and share and engage, but keep the questions for the Q&A. And yeah, for now that chat is open, so feel free to use it, and I'll hand it back over to MJ. Oh, you're muted.
You'd think we'd not done this
I
before.
know. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Trish. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to our amazing panel for tonight. We have our co-moderators, Mara Ramirez, a Rethink Key collaborator, patient advocate, who also happens to work in the field of finance, and Margaret Loniewska, also a Rethink Key collaborator, and she's a member of our Metastatic Breast Cancer Advisory Board and a patient advocate. And then, hello, Margaret. And then for our finance experts lending their advice tonight, we have Laura Goodwin from BDO Canada and Michelle Hung from Wealthsimple. So before we dive in, we would just love to start off with each of you sharing just a little bit about yourselves, just to kind of give some context to why you're here and what you're going to contribute. So I'm going to hand that over to Mara. Take it
Thank
away.
you very much, MJ and Trish. Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Wow, I'm really excited just to have this chat. It's something that's looming over everyone. In my personal experience, I've been in finance for over 17 years. I'm a financial professional, entrepreneurial business owner. And yeah, my life in finance took a total whirlwind, and I really had to live a masterclass in finance in 2021 when I was diagnosed at the age of 38. You think you know what you know in your field, and then you have to really live the nitty-gritties of it. So I'm here to share and be with you in that space. My experience firsthand was the overwhelm of trying to handle, being in the healthcare system that we're so grateful to have. And I was always very aware of how worse things could be, but then wanting to take lead in my healthcare, doing alternate care, like alternative medicine and different options that I could see and whatever I could explore, really just finding out everything came out of pocket and the bills just piling up. And, we had just bought a house. There was just never a good time. And then coming fast forward, being a triple negative breast cancer patient and coming back, them telling you that you're cancer free and realizing that I was not financially free at this stage. I'm like, now the real work is begin, because you're expected to come back and be the best version of yourself. And you have this, for me, it was a Mara 2.0 moment. I'm going to be the best version. I'm going to be super, super healthy. I'm going to be on top of everything. And as the healing started, the overwhelm just blew me out. And it was really even tough for me, even as a professional in this field, to really grasp what was ahead of me. So I find the passion about talking about these things because I know that a lot of you are in the same boat that I was in, or getting into there and just wanting to be ahead of it and being able to have a grasp. So that's why these conversations with professionals are so important. They say that people who work with a financial professional are 4 times likelier to have a success in their finances, which is all great and dandy in a white picket fence version. But what about when life hits, right? This is when we really need to reach out to those that are really willing to help, right? So these conversations that we're having, this is a starting point for all of us to continue this theme, so that way we can help other people navigate their financial futures, whether it be from a cancer-free status or in a metastatic field where you're, nothing's changing for a long time and finances are just probably going to feel heavier with that type of a diagnosis. So I'm just happy to be here, and I would love to pass it off to Margaret with that.
Okay, thanks, Mara. Yeah, you can really feel your passion in this discussion and in this conversation. So, as you said, my name is Margaret, and I live in Toronto. I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, which is stage 4, in 2019, which actually means that my treatment is not stopping. I am on continuous treatment. Another nice little surprise that happened was that I actually also found out I was pregnant at the same time that I was told I have cancer. And as you could imagine, that also has an impact on my finances. And I actually joined the NBC advisory board I mean, kind of shortly after being diagnosed, but I did really want a purpose to all of this. So I was very glad to find Rethink. And I found that the conversations on finances, yes, people were having them, but they were a little bit taboo because people don't like to even share like how much money they make, what they're spending their money on, and all this stuff. And I found that just not talking about finances in any kind of situations where like there's any kind of trauma or any kind of crisis that has happened doesn't happen, but particularly with cancer patients, I wanted to be like a voice of a patient in this discussion because I am sure that everybody is thinking about this, right? My career had to change, meaning become non-existent. And yeah, I pieced together different things from just, little snippets. And I also really wanted to be a part of this conversation because anything that I found online was just so blah, like very boring, very like just this, and there was really like no feeling in it. Where I remember, especially at the beginning of getting diagnosed, that was one of the biggest thoughts that I had. Like, what am I going to do? I'm about to have a baby. I can't continue my education because I now on disability and all of this stuff. So yeah, I was definitely looking for the information, but as soon as I started looking at it, it was like, oh my God, like this is so boring. Like I can't deal with this right now. So just kept on putting it off. And so that's why I wanted to be part of this conversation. So I will throw it to, I believe, who is
Laura.
Laura?
Yeah,
Yes,
Laura can share her bio. Yeah.
my one of my dear friends, Laura, who we actually talked about these topics. And I'm just so fortunate to have such a friend. And she is really an expert in all of this. So I'm so glad that she can join us today.
Thank you so much, Margaret, for the introduction, and thanks to Trish and MJ for having me here today. I'm really quite honored to be part of this conversation and provide some information about what debt relief options are available in a situation like this. Margaret shared her story of learning that she was pregnant amidst her diagnosis, and I will share a personal anecdote. Our daughters are born on the exact same day. So for what I do, I am a manager with BDO Canada. I work in the personal debt solutions practice. I live in the Niagara area and my office is based out of St. Catharines. I work with individuals and families who are going through financial difficulty, and I help them get back on track with a plan, whether it's through formalized services that we can offer or just through budgeting support or other debt management services. A big part of my practice involves working with people who are facing major life disruptions like a job loss, reduced income, a relationship breakdown, and increasingly serious health challenges, like a cancer diagnosis. These people are in my office quite often, and I see people from all walks of life, but really it only takes one significant life event to tip the scales and make people feel like they're drowning even more when they really should need that time to be focused on their health. So with that, I will pass that off to Michelle.
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you everyone for having me here. So I'm Michelle. I'm a senior advisor at Wealthsimple. I'm on the wealth management team where I help Canadians build financial plans and invest their money. I've been doing this for the last several years. And actually before that, I started a platform called The Sassy Investor, a financial and investing education platform dedicated to teaching women how to invest, how to build financial independence, and how to build a lifetime of wealth. And the idea originated when I was caught off guard with a life event, like losing my job, ending a long-term toxic relationship. And that's when I realized things, that we were generally not ever emotionally prepared, emotionally, mentally, financially prepared for these events, and in this case of this audience, physically prepared for also for prepared for as well. So I'm very passionate about supporting women, helping them reset their lives and finances, and helping them navigate through life events when it comes to their financial well-being. I'm also an author of 2 books, The Sassy Investor and Investing for Teens, How to Save, Invest, and Grow Money. I wrote these books because I too found a lot of finance information very boring, especially investment education. So I went ahead and created a book designed for women, being very interactive, and you can color in it, just so, to make investing a little bit more fun. So thank you again for having me here. So back to you, Mara.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Laura, for being with us. I'm excited to have this, conversation with the two of you and with Margaret. You know, I think back to what I was saying in the beginning about just going through it as a patient. It just, everything when you're going through cancer becomes a new type of perspective. And finance, really at that moment, we're just scared of everything. I mean, you need to be focused on your health, on, it was hard to remember, what was happening at my doctor's appointments, what my doctor said. I was going through chemo. I was telling you ladies that I had a notebook with like little tabs to remember things, and my husband would be with me and he would be asking questions because, everything's just affected, and you're trying to create a space where you could be as relaxed as possible. But the reality is, and I remember sitting in those chemo chairs and hearing the conversations from a distance, because I was going through this with COVID, where people were just, my EI is running out. I don't know what's going to happen. COVID supplements, everything that was happening, there was so much uncertainty, right? And nowadays it's really no different, just that we're off of COVID. So I would like to talk to Margaret a little bit about your experience. If we can start there, let's get this going. Margaret, I know that we chatted before about, the reason why we're having this conversation, and you were such a spearhead in this, going through experience, being a new mom, going through as pregnant, going through it. Can you talk a little bit about, your experience, and what were some of the challenges, and what were some of the resources that maybe that you were trying to lean on or were hoping to find in that time period?
Thanks, Mara. So in my, sort of crazy time, I was just like you. I would go to the doctor's appointments and was trying to focus on that a lot more than really anything else. Once I found out that the cancer was actually already in my bones, and that's why I was experiencing so much pain, and I lost a lot of mobility. I lost just my ability to really do anything. It was a very, very tough time in my life. And one of the biggest points of anxiety was that I wasn't able to, I wasn't working. I was actually working on some additional certification to expand my career. And I realized that I had to drop out. I was not able to attend the school anymore. I was working part-time, but I was not able to continue that job either because it was a sitting job. I wasn't able to sit. I was also pregnant. And so I had to really take in that anxiety and that stress, where I didn't know if I was going to be like this for a long time. I didn't know if I was going to be in need of daily care. Like, this is something that actually came up in conversations with my doctors. Like, how do I qualify for like in-home care? Because there were points in my journey that was a real possibility that I was going to totally lose the ability to walk. And obviously finances come into that because, well, that's not covered, right? That's not free. That's something that you have to budget for. That is not just something that like, oh, some magical fairy comes and takes care of you and your baby, right? So it was those were the kind of financial stresses that I was worrying about. I didn't have much savings. I, being a creature that likes a lot of comfort, I also do like to spend.
I mean, who doesn't
So
on this
I was
panel and in this chat? I think we all do. I think it's a safe space for that.
yeah, so yeah, don't judge me, but
No judgment here. This is a judge-free
I
zone,
like to
Margaret.
spend. I like very soft pillows and all of these things. The one thing that I did need to spend money on was some just like fixtures in like in my room, in my bathroom, and all of this stuff was, just the costs were racking up. Yes, I knew that there may be some resources out there like charities and different organizations, but for every single thing, it was like another application, another this, another that. Thankfully, my husband was able to sort of figure out that after a while of, once things stabilize, I will probably qualify to get some CPPD, which is a disability payout from your CPP. But other than that, I was kind of lost in all of the stuff. And plus, at the same time, I was really trying to, get the cancer under control and make sure that Mariana, my child, was born. So it was, quite a stressful financial time for sure, which added a lot of anxiety. I remember talking to uh, my my counselor, because I did qualify for a counselor. I qualified for 4 counselor sessions, and all 4 of them, she actually was the one that really helped me out with budgeting, which is probably not her job, but it definitely was at the top of my mind a lot of the times, because I was really that was what I was really worried about.
But I'm glad that you're sharing that too, because it's about, I want to pinpoint something you're saying that's very, very important. It's kind of underneath that, is that how much work you had to do to find the help, and I feel that sometimes even as a patient, and even afterwards, even in healing and recovering, there's a sense of like almost like guilt too. Like, should I really apply for this? Maybe someone's sicker than me, someone's going through harder than me, and or would I even qualify? Just a fear of someone saying no to you for something to qualify. So thank you for sharing that. So I would like to kind of lead this into to Michelle and to Laura too, because on the side of resources and hearing from what Margaret is sharing, and just understanding other from an employment side or self-employed side, there's so many different sides of the coin. All the same, we're struggling with those same thoughts and fears. Where could we kind of gap on that? Where can we fill the gap in that? What are some of the things that people are missing that don't realize that they can take advantage of?
Sure. Michelle, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I'll start with like in terms of like understanding like the support systems that you have access to, right? So not everyone has savings. Like when it comes to like finances in general, this applies to everyone across the board. You have to, start with yourself, right? Margaret mentioned like budgeting, right? So your cash inflows, your cash outflows. If you have an emergency fund, great. Then whatever you need to tap into for immediate expenses, that is considered an emergency, right? But don't think you need to liquidate your investment portfolio, like your RSPs and stuff like that. We'll have a discussion on that later on. But understanding what support systems you have access to, especially when your employment income, your job, like or you're self-employed, if that stops rolling in. So let's start with like many Canadians, there are employer benefits, right? So it's the first layer of financial support during your treatment, workplace benefits, private insurance, sick leave, short-term disability, long-term disability, critical illness, or even extended healthcare coverage. So with that said, if you do have like workplace benefits and insurance, what I've seen over and over again, reviewing people's financial plans and insurance policies, a lot of people don't know what they're covered for and how much they are covered for. So what you want to do is you have to call like your HR, you have to find out what it is that you are exactly covered for, right? You're paying into this. So you want to make sure that you are maximizing on those benefits. And then of course, if for some reason or at some point maybe you opted in for like some sort of like creditor protection insurance on your mortgage or your car or loans or line of credit, that can actually help cover payments during treatment. The bank is not going to volunteer that information. You have to ask. So basically, any type of insurance that you've opted for, you opted in for, you paid for, give them a call first. And then, of course, there are, in terms of like building out your support system, there are the government benefits, right? Like the CPP disability, EI sickness benefits. And keep in mind, like you want to apply early, right? Whether or not you think you're going to qualify, it doesn't matter. Just apply, because they take a long time to get your money. It takes a while to get your money, especially from the government. And they also work together, right? There are waiting periods, there are offsets. So you want to make sure you apply it as soon as possible, whether or not you know you qualify or not. So this way, like, you now see, like, you have an overview of what it is that you could potentially have when it comes to your cash inflows. And then from there, you can start navigating, okay, these are my expenses, these are the costs. How do I bridge the gap now?
Beautiful.
And to add to that, I would say, with what Michelle is saying about accessing resources, a lot of the times what I see in practice is that people come into my office and they're on an LTD. So they're at 80% of their income, or they're at 66% of their income. But basically, the income in the household has decreased drastically. And now what's filling the gap at that point is credit. So they're using credit cards and lines of credit to pay for things that were previously just part of the regular cash flow. And in situations like that, I would say the advice is to always reach out early if you are starting to see that that is building up, because like Michelle said, you don't want to get into a situation where you are liquidating assets, because there are several steps that you could take before that. And even if you needed the help of a licensed insolvency trustee or some sort of debt management plan, a lot of assets are protected within the province, so that even if you needed the insolvency support, you would be able to retain those assets. So having a conversation early on, if you're starting to see that credit is filling in the gaps because the income isn't there anymore, is the most important thing.
Great, thank you, ladies. I think there's two things that come to mind right away. One is, the reality of any Canadian right now. I mean, a good percentage of Canadians in general overall would be struggling 3 to 6 months of savings that they have. Like they would not be, I just don't want anyone on here to feel like, well, I'm just not prepared. I should have been prepared. And I think that is a conversation that happens one-on-one. And there's not really a lot you can do to prepare to be sick, right? Like there's nothing that's going on that can give you it would have been great to know that was going to happen, but the truth is that there's nothing. So if you have mounting debt, there's services out there. If you have, questions, there's people willing to help, and it's, getting those sources out. So to both Laura and Michelle,
to add to exactly what you were saying, I get people in my office all the time that say that they feel so guilty that they relied on debt, and they feel so bad that this has happened. People carry so much guilt about spending during treatment, especially if the debt has built up. But in reality, like, it's one of the most financially disruptive life events someone can go through. And spending emotionally is incredibly, incredibly common too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I remember, the first couple of things that we did were, my husband was like, I'm going to buy you the sauna. I'm gonna buy you this. Like everything that was like supplement, like I would never, we've always wanted, but we just said no to because it was just not in the budget.
So normal.
And being okay to say, you know, it's okay, I need this because it's healing for me. But also the same thing was, you know, buying a couple things that made me feel good and just, you know, just having that normality of, you know, being a woman and just enjoying, you know, regular everyday life. And I think the guilt part is something that we need to navigate, even when you're not sick, right? So thank you. So if we can talk a little bit about some resources, federal, provincial levels to help patients and their families out. You know, how can we access them, or what can we do when we've tapped them out? You said about using every part of your benefits. You know, some people don't even know what is available to them, what they've already paid for. That's on a private level. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there are resources available like federally, provincially, like charities, and even hospitals themselves, right? So I think the biggest challenge is like people just don't know where to start, or they wait until they're like financially overwhelmed before asking for help, right? So I think like reaching out and having these discussions like ahead of time, or just doing it now, like that's your, you know, that's, you know, better to be early than late on it, right? So again, there's like EI sickness benefits federally. There's a CPP disability, like apply for those. Even like for a CPPD, like if you know you'll be out of work for a long time, like especially if you've been diagnosed with like stage 4 metastatic cancer, like apply for those because they do take a while. And also provincially, I know like every province is different. We have like people from like across Canada, and I even like saw someone from the US. Like there are drug assistance programs like Trillium Drug Program for high prescription drug costs. And I think like some of you can here can speak to some of the programs that you were able to utilize. So like, you know, feel free to like share like what was really helpful, or even like what you wished you knew about like beforehand.
Yeah, you know what, I feel like during that time I was self-employed, so a lot of things felt like, do I even have access to this? Right? I didn't even know where to start to apply for things. And I go back to the fact that I was also going through this through COVID. And I was like, can I apply for these supplements? I did, and nothing made sense to me at the time. So I'm going to be totally frank. We just applied. We just
Mhm.
applied. I'm a big fan of ask for forgiveness, not permission, right? I feel like in a time when you are going through so much emotionally, physically, you're trying to just make sure that there is income flowing. You know, I like think I was fortunate that we had a business that was still rolling even through COVID. Being in the finance sector, everyone still need to deal with their money. But I think about that, and I just remember, yeah, just applying for anything I could, anything that would allow us just to feel like we could breathe. Like I had mentioned to you, we had just bought a house, right? So we had we were building a house. So I don't know if anyone on here has ever built a house before, but they have, you know, timelines when money's supposed to be, you know, put in for deposits. It's not that they don't care. I'm sure people care, but you know, the law is the law, and you've signed a contract and they want their money when they want their money. So it was, you know, robbing Peter, pay Paul type of deal, trying to figure that out. And the resources were not really available to me because there was just so much uncertainty at the time. My benefits, you know, as a self-employed, I paid for benefits. And I'm grateful that I did. And that's how I learned. I'm like, oh yeah, I have naturopath. You know how many times I did not do a massage? Every time we get to October is like the busiest time of the year for medical benefits for people who have them just from work, because the benefits are going to renew and everyone's like getting a massage or doing some kind of treatment. I was maxing that kind of stuff out because whatever I could use to help me, that's what I was doing, and making sure that, you know, I did my dental appointment, whatever I could. I just wanted to make sure that I maximized what I had available at that time. You know, so if there's any, Laura, if you have anything.
One of the interesting things that I did find was that a lot of the applications actually involve your doctors. So your doctors help you fill out applications for CPPD, for Trillium specifically. So what I found was that like that discussion had to be done with your doctor as well. And you almost have to like be really honest with them. Like, I really need this. I really need this. I really need this. And because they, especially oncologists, they do know what it involves. They help you fill out those applications. Have you guys heard about this for CPPD? There is kind of like I don't even know really what to call it, but the payments are retroactive, but there is like not a cooling period, but like a period where like if you apply, you won't get it because you're doing it too early. Have you guys experienced this? Have you heard about this? Like my husband found some kind of like little tidbit, something that like don't even bother applying within the first 2 months. You basically have to wait 2 months after your like I guess diagnosis or start of your treatment or something like that, specifically for CPPD. But I'm assuming that there are these kind of periods for other things as well.
Margaret, for as far as I know, like, in anything, you shouldn't wait to apply. You should always apply at the moment that you can get paperwork started. Things take time. And the one thing, that's for certain, the government takes time, right?
Mhm.
So getting the process started as early as possible is always going to be your safest bet. Retroactive payments are nice, but it's also nice to have peace of mind that the process is already underway. All right, so make sure that you get someone that, maybe has a clearer mind to sit with you, to go through paperwork, go through those applications, have the phone calls next with you, with your doctor or with your advisor. But, with any application, even with the Trillium is a great benefit. It is a bit of a, doozy trying to navigate, putting the right dates and the right times and all those things on those applications. But just fill them, get them in. Like I said, I'd rather, ask for forgiveness and ask for permission. I'd rather them tell me no, not right now, but the government wants to get them in
Yeah,
right away.
Trillium is a very interesting kind of benefit because it does work like in tandem with your spouse. So their earnings count into it. But you have to be a member of Trillium to get a lot of the drug assistance from the company. So they won't even talk to you uh, if you are not assessed for Trillium. So like my what is it called? The deductible was really, really high. And I at the time I thought, well, like there's no point signing up for Trillium because the deductible is so high. Like I'm not going to use this. But you need to be a member to get some other benefits.
Well, even with the Trillium, before we continue on with the discussion, people may not realize that your whole household would be included in there. In the time period, my sister-in-law lived with us, right? So even if you're not using all the benefits, there might be someone else that needs the benefit as well. So your whole household is included in there. So that's also important to know. Yes, it is geared to your income and your deductible is based on that. But in my case, my drug usage outside of the hospital didn't start until much later. So the cost, I was in the same boat. My deductible was still very high, but my sister-in-law, who lived with me at the time, she's diabetic and had a mountain of other prescriptions. So at the time, she didn't have any of her own private benefits. So we were all covered under that plan. So it was actually a benefit to us, period. Right. So, I mean, again, it comes back to if the service doesn't get used, then it's there for that reason. The same thing with your health benefits from work. If you don't use them, they don't have a reason to pay for them, right? Use them, use the services as much as possible, right? Laura, do you have anything to pipe in on that before we move forward?
Yeah, for sure. So if the traditional accessing of resources doesn't work and the reliance on, credit has started, there are definitely practical supports within the Canadian system to help people stabilize that debt. Typically, when people get to my office, there's the formal ones that we can do, but there's also, and I'm sorry because if you're watching on a device or your laptop, you're going to be inundated with targeted advertising tomorrow because of what I'm about to say. So the debt advisory space is quite vast. And there are regulated professionals and completely unregulated professionals in this space. So if you are looking for support, there is traditional not-for-profit credit counseling services out there. They can start simply with just helping you do a budget. And that service is free. If you move into like a debt management program with credit counseling, they can help to restructure your debt into an affordable monthly payment, and it usually freezes the interest. It doesn't erase the debt, but it provides some cash flow relief. And then the last thing I will say in terms of what a licensed insolvency trustee can do is that, an LIT is the only federally regulated body to administer formal debt restructuring options in Canada. You should never have to pay to have a conversation with an LIT or a member of their office staff. So those conversations are always free. So just be wary of the debt advisory space right now. But we can talk to you about all kinds of things, informal restructuring, consumer proposals, and as a last resort, there is the bankruptcy option as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I see a lot of questions are coming, which is great. We will cover a few questions later on this session. Today, we wanted to get this conversation going, and I wish we could squeeze it all in 90 minutes, but I would like to move us forward into like a little bit of tax navigation. It doesn't solve our daily problems, but it is something that we all think about as we go through this time. And we talked a little bit about that in the beginning, but I'm sure, many don't know what they can claim on their taxes. Can we talk a little bit about the medical expense tax credit for those that may not know it exists? And there are, what tips and tax credits like can, share with us, so then that way people can go back to their, their tax experts and talk to them about.
So the METC, medical expense tax credit, it allows Canadians to claim eligible out-of-pocket medical expenses that were not reimbursed by insurance, right? So when it comes to like these types of expenses for tax time, I would say just track your expenses, keep the receipts, keep track of it in a spreadsheet, because come tax time, the more expenses you have to claim, the less taxes you'll owe. And hopefully you'll get a refund or a larger refund, or if you're self-employed, you're paying a lot less taxes. So some of these expenses include, like the prescription medicines that you had to pay out of pocket for, travel. If you're traveling over 40 kilometers for treatment, you can claim mileage. I believe it's over 80 kilometers, you can claim meals in hotels. Parking, if it's like daily parking for like short trips, it's not covered, but if you do travel long distance, make sure you keep the receipts. And there are other hidden costs, right? Like wigs, breast prosthetics, and even like the private insurance premiums you pay through work. If it's paid with after tax money, you can claim those as well on your taxes. Medical devices, supplies, even counseling or therapy from eligible practitioners, attendant care. So the best thing to do is just keep track of all the expenses related to treatment, to medication. And at the end of the day, like when you talk to your accountant, at least you have everything there, and they can make the call and be like, okay, this can go ahead, this cannot go ahead. But at least you have, like, it's better to have all the expenses right there, as opposed to, oh, I could have claimed this, I could have claimed that. And then after you file your taxes, you realize, oh, I could have gotten more money, right? Or a bigger refund, or paid less taxes. So again, while taxes, like, it doesn't provide immediate cash flow relief, come tax time, it'll be very helpful. You'll be very relieved to be putting these like medical expenses in that do reduce your tax burden. We're a very highly taxed country, so
Yeah,
make
just
sure
a little bit, right?
Is there a limit to the medical expenses? Like, is there like just like a cutoff that past that don't worry about it? Basically, like if you have receipts up to a certain amount, is there anything like that, or is it unlimited?
Yeah, I think it's there's no like I've never seen a cap on it. I mean, the worst thing is they come back and they're like, "Hey, we have to review your receipts. You have the receipts, you have the proof, and that's it." Right? No one's going to jail. Like you're not gonna
No.
like it's like
Yeah.
it's like that's the worst thing is they come back and be like, "Hey, can you just show me like your top 10 largest expenses and the receipts for it?" And that's it. Right? They accept it or they
Now,
don't.
if you sorry, I was gonna pipe in there because you were saying that and that made sense. I apologize. But if you when you're claiming it, one, make sure that you're using an accountant that can help you with this, because again, like unless you're doing like your a pro season at U-File or NetFile, how you report them matters. And they can tell you what makes more sense based on who makes more income in the family or vice versa, those kind of little tricks and tools. But, again, it just comes down to having receipts. Realistically, in that situation, they are looking to help you the best way they can. They see that you have an illness, that you're going through this stuff. They're not going to come knocking on your door for like, a couple $100 here and there, right? It's not that deep, if I can say it that way, right? But it does really help. Let's keep it like that, right? It's not that deep, right?
I find I'm very bad at keeping receipts. I am not an organized person. I do not have a notebook of anything.
Well, you know what?
And
The notebook thing helps. Really helps.
Yes, I know, and especially after going through cancer treatment, like before my brain, yay. After treatment, my brain very very forgetful. So one one tip that I have is especially for drug expenses, your pharmacy is required to give you like a printout of everything that you spent in a year, and it's all nicely divided up for you and everything like that. Obviously, the premiums that you pay on insurance, I believe, are also part of the expenses. So keep track of those for sure. The insurance company also keeps track of your claims and spending. So whatever you put through insurance, if they only, let's say, pay 75% or something like that, they will have that all broken out. So that's an easy way to get receipts instead of, having a shoebox of every receipt that you've gotten, right? I put them in my bag and then they get lost. So
exactly.
That's
last resort is keep it in a box. Last resort.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep the conversation rolling. Margaret, I'm going to send it off back to you so you can take on to part 2 of our conversation. But just so everyone knows, we do have a budget sheet that's fillable that we can provide and can share. Even if it just helps and you can slide it into that folder that you have or with your tabs. At least you just have a tracking system for you and your family. Okay. Margaret, take it away.
All right. So we have discussed some of the tools that are provided by the federal, provincial, and other bodies. Like I mentioned, your doctor is also aware of a lot of things. My doctor had actually saved me a lot of money because they immediately signed me up for disability parking pass, and that actually saves me a lot of money on parking in the city. And so, yeah, we talked about some tools, but just like the whole raison d'etre of this is that, like I said, the financial stress is actually causing for many patients a lot of like mental stress, actually stress, right? It impacts how you are actually dealing with the disease. It impacts, even your survivorship after, right? We talked about, overusing the credit cards, and now you're done treatment and now you have to pay off, right? You treated yourself a little bit too much. And what I would like to know from our experts is, a person comes to you in a crisis. What is kind of like the first thing that you say? Like, what can we tell people that, like, will make them sort of feel comfortable talking about this more to either, insolvency experts or just even investment experts, anybody. What can we tell people?
I would say, they're not alone. If anyone's watching the news right now, even outside of a diagnosis, you'll see that there's like an affordability crisis going on. Anyone that's gone grocery shopping or put gas in their car in the last couple of weeks is probably feeling that even more. So the compounding of that with a diagnosis can double the strain. But it's that there's options available to talk about this very early on so that you have more knowledge. And specifically to go back to what Michelle has said and I touched on earlier, is it's really about the knowledge to have the conversation earlier before it starts to feel unmanageable and before you start going after your investments and your pensions and damaging financial security in the future. Know that there are options out there. And really, it's just, in practice, I meet with people every day, like I said, and it is just one life event that can tip the scale. And don't be embarrassed. This is a completely judgment free. That is not our job. When you come and meet with a debt advisor, it's not part of what we do every day to make you feel worse about anything. It's to provide you with the information that you need so that you can make an informed decision.
Yeah, and just to chime in there, like I've helped people like thousands. I've been through thousands of budgets, right? And people who are not sick. I've seen like the dumb stuff that people spend money on, right? But it's like it happens, right? For whatever reason, it is. But I find that once they have a plan, like once there's some certainty, like look, you can spend this much on now going forward, if you're trying to reset, you're rebuilding, you're repaying everything. Now it's like, this is what you're going to be applying to your debt. This is what you can start, like, you can allocate towards savings. This is what you're going to be living off of. It's having a little bit of certainty. Like, I've seen people carry mountains of debt. You can have a large amounts of debt, but you can still manage that on a day-to-day basis. It's the uncertainty and not knowing, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I can pay this off. What am I going to do? Am I going to go through bankruptcy and all these, like, not knowing what your options are and not having a plan. Once you have a plan and a budget in place, you'll feel a lot better. And I think that's the most important part. So it's not so much as like how much money you owe. It's like, what steps are you taking to be managing your cash flow on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, and
Do
there's
you?
and there's there's so many options before the bankruptcy proceeding. I think some people get really put off about talking to a licensed insolvency trustee or just coming in to have a conversation about debt because there's the shame associated with it. And then there's also, well, I can't do anything because I have XYZ assets. And if I do that, they're going to take everything. And that's just not the case. There's so many steps that are available before then. It's just having the conversation is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever like I mean, have you ever seen really anybody like be somewhere where they cannot get out of it?
No. The solution, Michelle and I exist on probably opposite ends of the spectrum. So, you start at Michelle and you're looking at reorganizing some of your assets to try and manage your cash flow. And then when that becomes unmanageable through budgeting and so on and so forth, you end up with having a conversation about debt and how to restructure debt. But within that spectrum, there is always a professional available to you to have the conversation that you need to have. For sure. I have been doing this for almost 20 years, and I have never had a situation that wasn't either fixable with what a trustee could offer or a referral could offer.
That's amazing. That's actually like such a, hopeful message, right? It is doable. We can do it. Like, you just have to take the first steps. You have to talk to somebody. You have to talk to somebody that may know a little bit more than you, or a lot more than you in my case, right? I know how to spend. I don't know how to do anything else in finance. What I did also, I did want to go back to you mentioned something about there are protections in place for your I guess savings or
Yeah.
yeah, so can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about the details of that?
Sure. So most investments are protected. So RRSPs, that's the big one that people come in if you've been contributing to an RRSP for the majority of your career. And you're like, if I go talk to a trustee, that's going to be the first thing to go. They're going to tell me to liquidate this and just pay my debt. That's not the case. The system in Canada is very much designed to be a fresh start for you, a fair recovery to creditors. But the role here is a mediator between those two things, those opposing forces. So, I mean, it is a case where, you will get to keep your RRSP. It's only contributions within the last 12 months that come into consideration when you're looking at restructuring debt. You will get to keep your pension. No one's going to liquidate your pension. You get to keep, basically basic personal exemptions for household effects, for your a personal motor vehicle. We have exemptions if you're a tradesperson for tools of trade. So nobody's going to come and take your things, if the things that you need to work. So, and there's more examples that exist like that. But, the ones that people are always the most concerned about are obviously the ones that would affect retirement planning. And those are the ones that are the most heavily protected. As part of if you needed to go through an insolvency proceeding, and having that conversation to talk about, well, maybe not everything is protected, but like you're going to keep this, this, and this. The only one in Ontario, I will say, and this differs for every province, is if you are in Ontario, registered education savings plans are not protected. So that is something that would come into play if you talked to a licensed insolvency trustee. That's only true for Ontario, where I reside. I know that like in Alberta, those are protected. So, the legislation changes across the country as well for what you can and cannot keep. But for the most part, I think most people would walk out of a conversation with like an insolvency advisor or a licensed insolvency trustee, not realizing how much they're going to keep as part of the process.
Yeah. I mean, that's great that all of these things are in place. And you are right. I think people are very afraid to, maybe this is one of the reasons why people are afraid of talking about finances, is because they're like, well, they're just going to take everything. And that's not the case. There are protections in place, right? And that's why yeah, that's why it
No,
is kind of drilled into us to do those savings, right? The RRSPs and all that. So
no,
that
the conversations that I have with people, Margaret, is I wish I would have had this conversation a year ago, 6 months ago, 3 months ago. I wish I hadn't touched that, because, the other part of this too is that when people are drawing from their RRSPs to service debt or to service other types of things that they can't afford at that time, then you're building a back end of a problem too, because now you have the tax implications at the other end, because you've added a source of income for your tax year, and now what could potentially be a refund situation is you've built up debt at the back end as well. So when you get hit with an income tax bill come tax time.
yeah, and yeah, the tax debt is something you that's one you do want to avoid really, really a lot,
Yeah.
right?
And tax debt is fully dischargeable in any sort of personal insolvency proceeding as well. Personal income tax debt.
So we also sort of touched on already, but one of the sort of the first steps that and I guess anybody that is interested in their finances is just the financial planning part. So, after someone comes in to you and they said, okay, I have all this debt, let's figure out how to pay this off. And then how does budgeting come into place? What sort of things are you including in the budgets? Mara, you did mention that there's going to be like a form that goes around, but can we just talk about those things? Like, like I said, the my expenses actually changed quite a bit as a patient. and this was also like a mentality thing, right? I changed what were priorities to me. So instead of spending money on like clothes or something, I would spend it on something that was just like actually making me feel good, like food, or things like this, right? So those are the kind of like budgeting and financial planning discussions that you must have a lot of. So, do you have any comments about that? And then also the other thing into financial planning that really, really changed my outlook on money is like I I don't do savings. I really don't really think about savings because I don't think about the future, right? Cancer has totally cleared my mind. I don't know what's going to happen in like a year or 2 years. Um, like, should I be investing? Should I be doing something else? Is there any kind of tips that you can lend me to like change my mindset? Like if I have money, I'm gonna spend it. So what
That's a
can I
good
do?
point. Well, Margaret, thank you for asking. But so I want to take a curtain off of this really quickly because not one household makes and spends money the same way, even within the household, right? So you got to understand that your budget, your family's budget, and your next door neighbor's budget is always going to be very different. You all have different financial goals, different things that you want to achieve, goals that you have for your children. So the question of you should also never have a should in your conversation in anything, right? There's no should, right? It's figuring out baby steps where you need to be, what your goals are, and just realigning yourself. Like you said before in the beginning, there's a new perspective for us, right? So budgeting even before cancer is a foreign language for most Canadians, most people around the world, right? So it's all about having a refreshed relationship with money. And I think that that's where it needs to start. It needs to be on a healthy, holistic way of money, because you've gone through all this trauma and you're going through it, depending on where you are in this journey. So it's just really coming down to, okay, how can I feel confident about my money, right? So it's not about should you save it, should you spend it? It's how do you feel confident with the money that you have, that you're making, and what you're doing with it, right? So I invite people to read first off, or listen to some good financial, lighthearted talks. Like there was a book that I like to refer especially to my women, that I find it really good as just an eye opener on, understanding, reclaiming your relationship with money and how you consume it and your life balance. And it's by Kate Flanders. The book's called The Year of Less. And that was a book that I read during this journey because I think that, my kids, like, I used to say swipe. I was good at that. Before I got into finance, I knew how to spend money, right? And now I'm just aware of it. It just really brought me back to understanding my relationship with it, right? So when it comes to budgeting and figuring out what's coming in, what's going out, and being realistic about the fact that no other company is thinking about Margaret's situation at home. Your mortgage company is not worried about, can you pay that credit card bill? Or, they're not having phone calls behind behind the scenes on your behalf to advocate for you. So you need to align yourself with someone that can have those conversations with you so you can put the puzzle pieces together. All right. And then get on a game plan. When do you need to do that? That is completely up to you when you are ready to have those conversations. Just like the applications for Trillium and all benefits, the sooner you do it, the better, because then you get the verbiage out, you get the numbers out, you get them laid out on a table and say, this is what's coming in, this is what's going out now. How can we adjust as a family? And I think that needs to be a healthy conversation if you're in a partnership, whether long-term, financially in a partnership, people are supporting you. I think it needs to be a conversation as soon as possible, right? Ideally before there's ever a sickness to be had, but like you said, there's a new perspective, right? So the conversation that maybe, Margaret, you and I could have had a couple of years ago before all this happened would be a totally different conversation that we have today. And I think that that's something very, very important to understand, to erase the guilt of maybe not have having that conversation prior with someone, and understanding the importance of making a budget, not because we want to tighten the reins, but just because you're in a new financial light, right? You're in a new situation, and just that way, so you have a grasp. And the sooner you have a grasp on that, the less anxious you'll be. And then you can go and make the purchases that you want and have the expenditures that you want, and you're going to feel okay with it. And I think that that's where you need to start it, right? It's fixing that relationship with money, so that way you can, because if you feel good about something, you're going to be wanting to work on it, right? And your goals, right? But you have a future in front of you, which is your family, and you have your daughter, and you have all those things, and you want to, you know, I mean, for me, I have two kids. You know, my oldest is 24 and my youngest is 14. And I think about, what am I showing them for their financial future? And not just because I'm in finance. I thought about that before. I used to be in pharmaceuticals many years ago before I jumped ship, right? And I used to think about that all the time. And those were the moments when I didn't have money to save, when I didn't have two pennies to rub together, and no one would talk to me. And I was afraid to talk to someone like Michelle, definitely afraid to talk to someone like Laura. And I thought that, you know, that was a bad thing, but really it was this industry that opened my eyes to saying, no, you need to be clear and have a conversation and be open-minded to having some guidance, right? So that's where I would start.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hope that answers your
Michelle,
question.
should I immediately start an investment account? What do you think?
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
know, it's like even like when we're talking about you've restructured your finances, you're finding yourself with some more stability, you know, absolutely. Like, and saving it's paying yourself, right? So like look at it at that way, where you're paying yourself. And one of the best accounts to have is the tax-free savings account, the TFSA, in Canada, because again, we're a very heavily taxed country, and it doesn't matter what income bracket you're in. Every Canadian should be looking to max out their TFSA savings, because you put money in, it grows tax free. You invest in whatever it is, you know, say like stocks or ETFs or investments that will help you compound your money. And then when you take it out, it is tax free. And it's one of those rare things in Canada that we have that's tax free. So
Unfortunately,
absolutely.
rare. It's something people need to have.
Exactly. So, and again, yeah, and it doesn't matter like how much money you make, how little or whatever. There are limitations, contribution limits. So it's a level playing field for everyone. So that's one thing you want to take advantage of, is the tax-free savings account.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much. I think you know, these things really, what you said, Michelle, what you said, it really summarized, right? Start early, start the conversation early, talk to anybody, talk to, yeah, you know, talk to your doctor, tell them your worries, talk to your friends, like Laura is my friend, and yeah, have those discussions, because they're important, and they may in the future you know, be quite beneficial when you know these things. So you know, I learned a lot. You know, this thing about the RRSP being protected, I am now going to for sure try to, you know, divert more money to that. And yeah, I really, really learned a lot. I can't wait to rewatch this again. So maybe we should move on to some Q&A, and you know, maybe some interesting things will come up from there. Trish?
Okay, we have a few questions. We have two questions that are similar about the disability tax credit. If anybody could answer that, the Canadian disability tax credit. The first one is, I'll just read it. Because of all the side effects I have from ongoing and continuing treatments for MBC, I applied to and got approved for a Canadian Disability Tax Credit and can now open an RDSP, Registered Disability Savings Plan. With which bank should I set up the RDSP with? And what should I look for with regard to investment portfolios? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Does anyone?
I can take that if anybody, unless Michelle, you have a pipe in or we
No,
can
go
both
ahead.
pipe in. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Great. First off, I'm glad that you applied and you qualified. That's fantastic. Step one, remember we talked about, make sure that you do that. As far as what banking, so there are some rules with RDSPs. You can't just walk in anywhere and get an RDSP, but there are certain institutions that definitely can provide the government. The beautiful part is that the government has sanctioned, the types of funds that we can have in there. They are built for long-term growth. So it's a great investment vehicle, lots of great benefits, and we can spend an entire couple hours talking about how wonderful that program is. As far as that, the big banks, you can definitely go to any of the big banks, RBC, CIBC, Scotiabank. You can go directly through an investment dealer. Mackenzie Investments has funds. There's those kind of things that you can open the door to. But again, coming down to who, it's not so much even the institution that you need to learn about the investments with. It's what fits your investment style and having the conversations for what your goals are, right? And having the same conversation with the advisor that's going to be guiding you there. Because this is now, it's not just opening an account and putting money in there. This is a long-term relationship that you're going to be needing to utilize in the long run, right? So it comes back down to having a conversation with the person who's guiding you to find the best suited investment.
Do you know if any like if you have any other types of registered accounts, can they be converted to this? Or no, is it like a brand new thing you have to start?
So it depends. Okay, so there is now without getting too detailed, because there's a lot of questions that we can ask, and we can always have another conversation. But for instance, children with disabilities, if they've had RESPs, that could be tied in. There is a portion that can be utilized with RDSPs. Like you can work that together, especially if they've come in from. I've actually seen situations where, children who've had disabilities that are coming in from, the system that are, being adopted or into placement where they have RESP money that's sitting in and that gets transferred over for them. So there's different situations that
okay, so there
really,
are
it's a whole can of worms.
Yeah, there are mechanisms to kind of like
There are some
move things
services,
around. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second question about the disability tax credit. This should be a tool to help individuals with a disability manage some of their financial stress. However, the impact of never-ending cancer treatment for metastatic cancer is not recognized or well understood by the assessors of this program. Are there reputable organizations to help complete forms related to this disability tax credit? My experience is that this assistance is an unmet need for the cancer community, but maybe there's support out there that she hasn't tapped into yet in Ontario. Does anybody?
Well, I mean, I myself did not qualify. It's the same sort of thing. Like they don't really understand. They don't understand the disease, which is quite unfortunate. When my doctor was filling out some of the forms, she told me don't read them because I'm going to write them like you're dying basically, because that's really the sort of the only way that you qualify for some of these things is if your doctor really embellishes your condition. And that's really unfortunate because there should be some kind of things in place. Like there are all kinds of disabilities and all kinds of things like that so yeah this is from Vesna, our friend Vesna, so yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if you guys heard of anything in any way, but I very often lean on my doctor for all of these things. And it's probably not even her, it's her secretary or her admin person that is doing all of this. But yeah, that
So,
is a unmet need for sure.
if I can just add to that, Margaret, if I can add for you, because you're saying that about you just asked about Vesna, and I realized, like, we are part of an organization called Rethink Breast Cancer, and one of the beautiful things that we do is that we find resources. So if Margaret and I don't have the answer right now for you, there are a handful of women on here that are willing to work with you and guide you in the best way possible. It is also good to know that, in Canada, like, we do have government approved tax clinics and volunteers that help navigate paperwork, right? So we have to, again, back to who are resources that are available to make sure that we can get some help. Often doctors' appointments are hard to come by when it comes to doing paperwork. They tell you what is needed, but ultimately you're going to have to fill them out. So definitely, and just be careful of, like, third-party sources that, don't seem reputable. I mean, at the end of the day, the CRA, like my CRA app has it's already like autofill, kind of, you just type it in and fill the information that you need and you can print it off. But definitely seek out the help of your community volunteers.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I
and
just
we have to talk to each other, right? Like, I may think, oh, I'm the only one that, like, or just, my application just happened to not be approved or be approved. But yeah, like, I think we have to talk about these things and continuously, share new things as well, right? Because things change. Yeah.
Okay, thank you both. Next question. What if you have no financial support through work, insurance, and are denied CPPD? Any advice?
Okay, I can take it. Laura,
Can you
Laura,
apply again? Can you apply again? Is it a one-time deal? Is it a one-time shot? What do you guys think?
well, you have to apply based on the information. So, like, it's not going to be like 1 month later. It would change the circumstances when they take a look. It really comes down to what the requirements are of the disability that you're applying with. I can tell you from my experience that, please, when I say this with a lot of candor because, I'm in the space. I felt at one point I wasn't sick enough to get any of those benefits. Like, if I wasn't this tier, which was baffling to me, I wouldn't be able to qualify for some of the benefits that were out there. So, I think that you really just not being able to qualify for anything. There is always solutions as long as you sit down and kind of map things out with someone, whether it be applying for different, like, fundings through different programs. I know that there's a couple like that. Sorry, forgive me, my brain just went. But a couple of programs, even to like to Rethink, in Hamilton, we've got the Pink program too. That there's, they have active volunteers that can seek out financial support systems and programs for cancer patients. Even through the Cancer Society. Cancer Society was great because I was able to get a parking pass. They gave me a free wig. Those kind of things that aren't into, like, you're not thinking about spending money on, or you're not worrying. You don't want to worry about even just doesn't not just breast cancer, any cancer, right? Like, there are programs. I spoke directly. I was treated at Juravinski and at Juravinski in Hamilton, and they had a whole list of resources for me to contact, right? And those are always changing because programs are developing, and it's these kind of conversations that are opening up those doors, right? To make sure that we can get those resources out to you. Off the top of my head, who you can reach out to, I do not have a list, but maybe something that maybe Trish, we can put into a panel for a chat to see if we can come out with a couple lists of resources, or maybe, we can set something out in the newsletter.
Is somebody like a social worker that is like a good resource as well? They are, if they are really, really good, they will have lots of different suggestions. I believe past CPPD, there's another program, right? ODSP.
Yes, there's provincial supports usually
Yeah,
too, right?
which
Like
is,
Ontario,
yeah,
the Ontario Disability Support Program.
yeah, yeah. And yes, that's kind of like, as things I either get denied or like for whatever reason, um uh yeah, there's like a continuation of programs as well. But yeah, I found speaking to a social worker really did help in that sense as well.
There's also Ontario Works. I mean, as an ultimate resort, Ontario Works, you can still reach out to them. So there, you have no source of income coming in because you're going through your treatments. You're not qualifying for programs. We can go back to I call it the basics, go back to the source, right? So their job is there to, fill in that financial gap and help you at that time when you're unemployed. This would be a situation where you're not working, and if your benefits are not there, you literally have nothing else to draw from. This is definitely a conversation, and do not wait until the last minute for this as well. But it's okay to have a conversation, like Laura was saying earlier. It's okay to have a conversation and see if this is an actual option for you, because it's better to have. I would rather them tell me yes, or rather them tell me no, than me thinking that I may or may not qualify, right? So it's just where can I get the source, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So you did mention some organizations. I believe Wellspring, especially in Ontario, has a good program for like a one-on-one counselor, and they are very knowledgeable about all of the different support programs, and they will go through and help you with all of them and
Yes.
suggest what could work. Yeah.
Great. Next question. How do I choose a financial advisor? What is a reasonable amount to pay for that service?
That's a great question. Hey, Michelle, you want to start?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take that one. So ideally, well, in Canada, we have like our big banks, there's financial advisors everywhere. But you got to be careful because, they're not like a fiduciary, which means like they're not going to have your interests at heart, right? They're working for the banks. They're there to sell you products. So ideally, you want to hire someone who is a fiduciary, and doing like one who's willing to do a fee only plan for you, so that way they're not selling you products. Because one of the big problems we have in Canada is that they're pushing a lot of expensive products onto you, especially like expensive mutual funds. There's a reason why our banks make so much money, right? So in choosing a financial advisor, you want one who has your interests at heart, which means they're not pushing products, they're not selling mutual funds or mortgages. If you can choose a fee only financial planner, I know there's like quite a few. I used to do that. I don't do that anymore. But it's ideal if you just pay a flat fee, because all they're going by is their reputation. They want to provide you with unbiased advice. They're not selling anything. At the end of the day, they just want to sell you good service. So the cost differs, right? So it could be, it could range from probably starting at I'm not even I don't know like what's out there, but I know like on average it could be like 2025, like to $3,000, but it depends on your circumstances. You may even, if all you need is like someone to help you with a budget, I'm sure like there are services out there where you can just pay like a couple $100s for that type of service, right? So just like just explore what's out there and just make sure they're not pushing like selling products at the end of the day, whether it's insurance or mortgages or mutual funds. So you want to look for like a fiduciary advisor.
Yes, Michelle's absolutely right. All those points that she hit are very, very important. I think, one thing that you can take away is, are there people that are willing to help you? Yes. Do you have to pay for advice? I don't, I'm been doing this for 17 years and not about me, but just in general, so you can have a take from someone who's still doing planning with people. I don't charge someone to talk to. right? Because I think that the conversation needs to happen before you even talk about a product. If someone's pushing a product on you, or talking to you, actually, I'll give you an example. We just had someone pass away in our family, and I had to go into an institution with my mother-in-law. And the first thing that they said to her was, besides, my condolences, we're like, okay, well, let's talk about, you don't bank with us, you have this type of account, but, we need to open up these accounts so we can service you. And I was just beside myself because I'm like, she just lost her spouse and we just need to get, ball rolling, get her name on things. None of that makes sense to me, right? You should be with someone that makes you feel like you're seen, that you're a person that can talk about your goals, talk about what what you're trying to achieve, that you can feel confident with, and then get a game plan together that you can start. It's not about the products and services, it's about the game planning and just filling in the gaps, right? So make sure that you find someone that you can start that conversation with and take those baby steps. The products, you can, they're a dime a dozen, right? It really comes down to the service of the person who's guiding you.
Yeah, I mean, being on the consumer side, I always felt that, yeah, uh, it's not necessarily a fee. They earn money by how much money you have with them, right? So if you are, if you keep all of your investments and everything with one person, they get like a percent, a small, what is it, MER or whatever.
Yeah,
They,
the
they,
management fee.
Yeah,
yeah,
so the management expense ratio pays for, and that's talking about investments, right? So
yeah,
we're talking
yeah.
about how the investment is being managed and the cost to manage funds, right? And that from there comes the advisor fees and all those things, right? So if someone that you're working with is getting paid for the book of business that they're managing, they have what we call in the industry skin in the game. That means that they have a financial interest in making sure that they are aligned with your goals to getting to where you want to be. But that's just one side of the story. We're also talking about making sure that we can navigate your budget and making sure that they're helping you along your guide, like along your path, what you need at that moment, right? So at the end of the day, back to figuring out who you need to talk to, there's tons of people like there that are willing to have an open conversation where it needs to start. So feel free to view them like us, right? Find out who they are, what matters to them. Because if someone's going to work hard for you, then how they get paid, yes, everyone needs to eat and everyone needs to put food on their table, but it shouldn't come at a cost to have someone tell you that you're in debt, you're not going to get your kids to school, you're dealing with a health crisis and you're 6 months behind. You don't need to pay for that. You need someone to give you the actual steps to move forward, right?
Okay, well, I think we need to be mindful of the time. So I just want to ask Michelle and Laura if you have any last thoughts to leave us with before we wrap this up. And Margaret.
Sure. I would say if you're starting to feel the pinch, I would say have the conversation before things really start to feel unmanageable. You don't have to wait until you're drowning to get the information that's available to you for free. It is free to have these conversations, and it's completely non-judgmental and it's confidential as well.
One thing I want to leave people with is whatever you're navigating right now, just like try not to assume that this moment is your forever. Situations evolve, support systems change, stability can be rebuilt over time, and you don't have to navigate everything perfectly all at once. You're more resilient than you realize, especially women. So, take advantage of your support system. Support does exist, even if it does take time to find it.
I 100% agree with both Michelle and Laura. And I'm grateful to share the space with you both and get a chance to chat with you. To all of you listening, you just remember that, there's always tomorrow for these things, right? There was moments when you just need to catch your breath and just look for help. And I think about that back at that time frame, and I'm just, grateful to know what I know, but I know how many of you are here today and spend their time to be here today looking for some answers. And I hope that this is, like I said, that we were going to start these conversations and open up to finding the space to continue to close those gaps for you along the way, and we will find the answers. And I'm committed to do that 100% with Rethink and everyone on here on this team. We're that's the space that we're in. We want to help everyone as much as possible, so we will find the resources and put things together to make this easier for you. So thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, and yeah, Michelle, that was actually so well put that, yeah, we don't have to be perfect. We just have to try. We have to have hope. It's not, today is not going to be the same as tomorrow. And yeah, there's always hope, and yeah, things change. That's amazing. I mean, I'm kind of, yeah, just that really resonated with me because, there are points in this sort of in my story where I did feel like I was drowning, and yeah, that was like one thought, like just maybe tomorrow it'll be different. And the changes could be slow or they could be fast. But yeah, nothing really stays the same. So that's a great message. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for such an amazing conversation. For everybody listening, we will be sending out a recording of this. We'll be sending out resources that Laura has shared, Michelle has shared, and Mara as well, that will be helpful in getting you started. And then some of the things we talked about tonight too, we'll also share links to those. I just want to thank you all for being a part of this conversation, and thank our sponsors for making this possible. Novartis, our gold sponsor, and our silver sponsors, Gilead and AstraZeneca. And we will be continuing this conversation. So we're so happy that everyone could join us. And thanks for being here, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Trish.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.